Welcome to Audiobooks Vault. In this video, we will summarize the book, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Let's start. Introduction. What if there were a way to turn uncertainty into opportunity? To take the chaos of starting a new business and transform it into a predictable, repeatable process that minimizes waste and maximizes impact. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries is not just a book, it's a playbook for anyone with an entrepreneurial spirit, whether you're a founder launching the next big thing, an innovator inside a corporation, or someone driven to create meaningful change. In today's fast-paced world, success isn't just about having a brilliant idea, it's about learning quickly, adapting faster, and creating products that people truly love. Ries introduces a revolutionary methodology grounded in scientific experimentation, actionable metrics, and rapid iteration. Forget the myth of overnight success. This book reveals how to systematically test your vision, steer your business toward growth, and innovate sustainably. Why should you read this book? Because it challenges the way you think about building a business. It's a survival guide for the modern entrepreneur, packed with real-world examples, transformative insights, and practical tools. Whether you're launching a startup or reinventing an existing organization, the Lean Startup promises to change how you work and how you succeed. Are you ready to accelerate your journey? Part 1. Vision. Introduction. Part 1. Vision of the Lean Startup lays the foundation for understanding how entrepreneurs can approach building startups with a new perspective. This section emphasizes the importance of embracing uncertainty, defining startups in terms of their goals and contexts, and adopting a learning-driven approach to overcome challenges. It consists of 3 key chapters: Start, Define, and Learn, which collectively introduce the Lean Startup methodology and its application. Chapter 1. Start. In this chapter, Ries explains the motivation behind the Lean Startup approach. He highlights the limitations of traditional business planning methods when applied to startups, which often operate in environments of extreme uncertainty. Unlike established companies, startups do not have proven business models or predictable customer bases, making conventional methods less effective. Ries introduces the concept of the Lean Startup as a systematic method for creating and managing startups in a way that maximizes efficiency and minimizes wasted effort. Inspired by lean manufacturing principles, particularly those pioneered by Toyota, the Lean Startup applies ideas like continuous improvement, just-in-time production, and waste reduction to the entrepreneurial process. A central idea in this chapter is the distinction between startups and traditional businesses. Startups are not simply smaller versions of established companies, rather, they are temporary organizations designed to discover a sustainable and scalable business model. Entrepreneurs must focus on experimentation and learning rather than executing static plans. Ries stresses the importance of innovation accounting, a framework for measuring progress in a startup context. Instead of relying solely on vanity metrics like revenue or user counts, startups should prioritize actionable metrics that provide insight into customer behavior and product-market fit. Finally, the chapter discusses the importance of vision in guiding startups. While adaptability and experimentation are crucial, entrepreneurs must maintain a clear vision of the problem they aim to solve. This vision serves as a North Star, ensuring that the iterative process of testing and learning remains aligned with the ultimate goal. Chapter 2. Define. This chapter focuses on defining what a startup is and why the concept of validated learning is essential for entrepreneurial success. Ries defines a startup as a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. This definition emphasizes the human element, the novelty of the product or service, and the uncertain environment in which startups operate. Ries explains that traditional management principles, which prioritize efficiency and optimization, are often ill-suited for startups. In a startup, the primary challenge is not execution but discovery. Entrepreneurs must determine whether their ideas are viable and whether they can create a product that satisfies customer needs. The concept of validated learning is introduced as a cornerstone of the Lean Startup methodology. Validated learning involves testing hypotheses about the business through real-world experimentation and using the results to inform decisions. This contrasts with traditional approaches that rely on intuition or untested assumptions. Ries emphasizes the importance of focusing on learning over outcomes. For instance, a startup might launch a product that attracts many users but fail to learn whether those users find the product valuable. In such cases, the startup risks pursuing growth without understanding its core value proposition. The chapter also highlights the significance of iteration. Entrepreneurs must cycle rapidly through the build, measure, learn feedback loop, continuously refining their ideas based on customer feedback and data. This iterative process enables startups to move closer to product-market fit while avoiding the pitfalls of overplanning or premature scaling. Ries concludes the chapter by discussing the role of vision and strategy in startups. While experimentation is vital, it should be guided by a clear understanding of the customer problem the startup seeks to address. Entrepreneurs must strike a balance between being flexible enough to adapt and resolute enough to stay true to their vision. Chapter 3. Learn. This chapter delves into the process of building a foundation for continuous learning through small experiments. Ries emphasizes that learning is the most valuable activity for startups because it enables entrepreneurs to test their assumptions and adapt their strategies based on real-world evidence. The chapter introduces the build, measure, learn feedback loop as the core process for driving startup growth. This loop consists of 3 stages. Build. Create a minimum viable product, MVP, that allows the team to test a specific hypothesis. The MVP is not a full-featured product, but the simplest version that can generate meaningful feedback. Measure. Collect data from customers interacting with the MVP. This data should be actionable and directly related to the hypothesis being tested. Learn. Analyze the data to determine whether the hypothesis is valid or needs adjustment. This learning informs the next iteration of the product or strategy. Ries emphasizes the importance of starting small and testing hypotheses incrementally. Large-scale launches or fully developed products are often unnecessary and can lead to significant waste if the underlying assumptions prove incorrect. Instead, entrepreneurs should focus on creating MVPs that provide maximum learning with minimal effort. The chapter also discusses the role of experimentation in fostering innovation. By testing different ideas and approaches, startups can identify what works and what doesn't, even in highly uncertain environments. This process requires a willingness to embrace failure as a natural part of the learning process. Ries introduces the concept of actionable metrics versus vanity metrics. Actionable metrics provide insights that can drive decision-making, such as customer retention rates or conversion rates. Vanity metrics, like total user numbers, may look impressive but often lack relevance to the startup's progress. Another critical concept is the pivot. If a startup's experiments reveal that its assumptions are flawed, it must be prepared to change direction. A pivot involves altering the product, strategy, or target market while remaining aligned with the startup's overall vision. Ries argues that successful startups are those that can pivot quickly and effectively when necessary. The chapter concludes by emphasizing the need for a culture of experimentation and learning within startups. Entrepreneurs and teams must be willing to question their assumptions, test their ideas rigorously, and adapt based on evidence. This culture of learning is essential for navigating uncertainty and achieving long-term success. Conclusion. Part 1 of the Lean Startup establishes the foundational principles of the Lean Startup methodology. It highlights the importance of adopting a learning-driven approach, defining startups in terms of their unique challenges, and using iterative processes to test assumptions and build sustainable business models. By emphasizing vision, validated learning, and continuous experimentation, this section provides a roadmap for entrepreneurs to navigate uncertainty and maximize their chances of success. The concepts introduced in these chapters serve as the basis for the more detailed strategies and techniques discussed in the subsequent parts of the book. Part 2. Steer. Introduction. Part 2 of the Lean Startup focuses on the actionable processes that allow entrepreneurs to move from vision to validated learning and ultimately towards building a sustainable business. This section outlines the steps involved in testing assumptions, collecting feedback, and using data to guide decisions. It consists of 4 chapters: leap, test, measure, and pivot, or persevere. Collectively, these chapters present a structured approach to steering a startup towards success. Chapter 4. Leap. This chapter addresses the fundamental challenge of translating a vision into a product that resonates with customers. Ries introduces the idea of assumptions and hypotheses as the foundation of entrepreneurial action. Every startup begins with a set of untested beliefs about its product, market, and customers. The role of entrepreneurs is to systematically test these beliefs to uncover what works and what doesn't. Key assumptions and hypotheses. Ries highlights 2 critical types of assumptions that entrepreneurs must address. Value hypothesis. Tests whether a product or service delivers value to customers. Growth hypothesis. Tests how a product can attract and retain customers to enable growth. By identifying these core assumptions early, entrepreneurs can focus their efforts on the most critical areas of uncertainty. This focus ensures that resources are allocated effectively and that the team learns as much as possible from each experiment. The importance of testing riskiest assumptions first. Ries argues that startups should prioritize testing their riskiest assumptions, the ones that could potentially invalidate the business model. By tackling these uncertainties head-on, entrepreneurs can reduce the risk of wasting time and resources on a flawed idea. This approach aligns with the principle of failing fast and learning quickly. Ries also emphasizes the importance of a clear vision as a guiding force. While hypotheses and experiments may change over time, the vision provides a stable framework that helps entrepreneurs navigate the iterative process of building and learning. Chapter 5. Test. This chapter introduces the concept of the minimum viable product, MVP, as a critical tool for startups to test their hypotheses. The MVP is a simplified version of the product that allows the team to gather maximum feedback with minimal effort. Purpose of the MVP. The primary goal of the MVP is to test the validity of the startup's assumptions. It serves as a learning tool rather than a final product, enabling entrepreneurs to collect real-world data about customer needs and preferences. Ries emphasizes that the MVP should be designed to test a specific hypothesis, whether it's related to value, growth, or another aspect of the business model. Characteristics of a successful MVP. Minimal complexity. The MVP should focus on the core functionality needed to test the hypothesis, avoiding unnecessary features or refinements. Rapid deployment. It should be built and launched quickly to allow for rapid learning and iteration. Actionable feedback. The MVP should generate data that helps the team evaluate its assumptions and make informed decisions. Overcoming challenges. Ries acknowledges that creating an MVP can be challenging for entrepreneurs who fear that an incomplete product might harm their reputation or fail to attract customers. However, he argues that the benefits of learning far outweigh the risks. By engaging with early adopters, startups can gain valuable insights and build a foundation for future growth. The chapter also discusses the importance of a mindset shift. Entrepreneurs must prioritize learning over perfection, recognizing that the MVP is a tool for experimentation rather than a finished product. Chapter 6. Measure. This chapter focuses on the critical role of metrics in guiding startup decisions. Ries introduces the concept of innovation accounting as a framework for measuring progress in a meaningful way. Unlike traditional accounting, which focuses on financial metrics, innovation accounting prioritizes metrics that reflect learning and validation. Actionable metrics versus vanity metrics. Ries distinguishes between 2 types of metrics. Vanity metrics. Metrics that look impressive but provide little insight into the startup's progress, e.g., total users, page views. Actionable metrics. Metrics that are tied to specific hypotheses and guide decision-making, e.g., customer retention rate, conversion rate. Startups must focus on actionable metrics to avoid being misled by data that lacks relevance to their goals. Actionable metrics provide clarity and help teams make data-driven decisions. Cohort analysis. Ries introduces cohort analysis as a valuable tool for tracking customer behavior over time. By grouping customers based on when they started using the product, startups can identify trends and patterns that inform product improvements and marketing strategies. The Build, Measure, Learn feedback loop. The chapter revisits the Build, Measure, Learn feedback loop as a framework for driving startup progress. After building an MVP, the team measures its performance using actionable metrics and analyzes the results to inform future iterations. This iterative process enables startups to continuously refine their product and strategy based on validated learning. Ries emphasizes the importance of setting clear baseline metrics and target goals. Startups must establish benchmarks for success and track their progress over time. If the data indicates that the startup is not on track to achieve its goals, it may need to pivot or adjust its approach. Chapter 7. Pivot. This chapter addresses the critical decision that every startup must face, whether to pivot or persevere. A pivot involves changing direction to pursue a new hypothesis while staying true to the startup's overall vision. Perseverance, on the other hand, involves staying the course and continuing to refine the existing strategy. Recognizing the need for a pivot. Ries explains that startups must base their pivot or persevere decisions on validated learning. If the data consistently shows that the current approach is not working, it may be time to pivot. The decision to pivot should not be viewed as a failure, but as a natural part of the startup journey. Types of pivots. Ries identifies several types of pivots that startups can make, including zoom-in pivot, focusing on a single feature of the product as the core offering. Zoom-out pivot, broadening the scope of the product to include additional features or services. Customer segment pivot, targeting a different group of customers. Platform pivot, changing the product from an application to a platform or vice versa. Business architecture pivot, transitioning from a high-margin, low-volume model to a low-margin, high-volume model, or vice versa. The pivot process. Ries outlines a systematic process for executing a pivot. Analyze the data. Review metrics and customer feedback to identify patterns and trends. Evaluate hypotheses. Determine which assumptions have been validated and which need to be revised. Develop a new hypothesis. Formulate a new approach based on the insights gained. Test the hypothesis. Use the Build, Measure, Learn loop to validate the new strategy. Cultural and emotional challenges. Ries acknowledges that pivoting can be emotionally challenging for entrepreneurs and teams. It requires humility, resilience, and a willingness to let go of ideas that are not working. However, he argues that successful startups are those that embrace change and remain committed to learning and adaptation. The Pivot or Persevere meeting. Ries recommends that startups schedule regular meetings to evaluate their progress and make pivot or persevere decisions. These meetings provide an opportunity for teams to reflect on their goals, assess their data, and determine the best path forward. Conclusion. Part 2 of the Lean Startup provides a practical framework for navigating the uncertainty and complexity of building a startup. It emphasizes the importance of testing assumptions, gathering feedback through MVPs, and using actionable metrics to guide decisions. The chapter on pivoting highlights the value of flexibility and adaptability, ensuring that startups can respond effectively to challenges and opportunities. By following the principles outlined in this section, entrepreneurs can steer their startups towards sustainable growth while minimizing waste and maximizing learning. This approach enables startups to stay aligned with their vision while continuously refining their strategies based on real-world evidence. Part 3. Accelerate. Introduction. Part 3 of the Lean Startup outlines strategies to help startups transition from early validation and learning to sustainable growth and long-term success. This section focuses on maintaining speed and agility as startups scale, improving production efficiency, fostering adaptability, and embedding a culture of innovation. The 4 chapters in this section, Batch, Grow, Adapt, and Innovate, address these goals with actionable insights and examples. Chapter 8. Batch. This chapter explores the concept of small batch production and its advantages for startups. Drawing inspiration from lean manufacturing principles, Ries explains how small batch sizes can improve efficiency, reduce waste, and accelerate learning. Small batch production. Key principles. Traditional manufacturing often relies on large batch production, where goods are produced in bulk to achieve economies of scale. While this approach may be efficient for established businesses, it is ill-suited for startups, which operate in environments of high uncertainty. Small batch production involves creating smaller quantities of a product and testing them quickly with customers. This approach enables startups to identify issues and make adjustments early, before committing significant resources. Key advantages of small batch production include faster feedback loop. Small batches allow for quicker testing and iteration, enabling startups to learn and adapt more rapidly. Reduced waste. By producing only what is needed for testing, startups can avoid the costs of overproduction. Improved quality. Frequent testing helps identify defects or inefficiencies early, preventing them from being scaled up. Challenges of adopting small batches. Ries acknowledges that shifting to small batch production may require a cultural change within organizations. Teams accustomed to traditional methods may resist the idea of producing incomplete or experimental versions of a product. However, Ries argues that the benefits of faster learning and reduced waste far outweigh these challenges. Examples from lean manufacturing. Ries references Toyota's lean manufacturing system, which uses small batches to improve production efficiency and quality. He argues that startups can adopt similar principles to optimize their development processes. For instance, startups can apply small batch thinking to software development by releasing features incrementally and gathering feedback at each stage. Chapter 9. Grow. This chapter focuses on strategies for achieving sustainable growth in startups. Ries emphasizes that growth is not just about acquiring new customers but about building systems and processes that enable consistent and scalable expansion. Sustainable growth. The three engines. Ries identifies three primary engines of growth for startups. The sticky engine focuses on customer retention. Startups using this engine aim to create products that keep customers engaged over time, minimizing churn. Metrics such as retention rates and lifetime value are critical for evaluating success. The viral engine relies on customers spreading the product to others. This engine is driven by word of mouth, social sharing, or network effects. Metrics like viral coefficient and time to refer are key indicators of growth in this model. The paid engine involves acquiring customers through paid marketing channels. Startups using this engine must ensure that the cost of customer acquisition is less than the lifetime value of the customer. Ries stresses that startups should focus on one engine of growth at a time to maximize their efficiency and effectiveness. Attempting to pursue multiple engines simultaneously can dilute resources and create confusion. Metrics for measuring growth. The chapter revisits the importance of actionable metrics in guiding growth strategies. Startups must track metrics that directly reflect the performance of their chosen engine of growth. For example, a company relying on the viral engine should prioritize metrics related to customer referrals rather than overall revenue. Scaling strategies. As startups grow, they must develop systems and processes to manage increased complexity. Ries emphasizes the importance of maintaining the agility and adaptability that characterize the startup's early stages. This includes automating repetitive tasks, building scalable infrastructure, and empowering teams to make data-driven decisions. Chapter 10. Adapt. This chapter addresses the need for startups to adapt quickly to changes in the market, technology, and customer preferences. Ries argues that adaptability is a critical factor in long-term success, especially in dynamic and competitive environments. Building a culture of adaptation. Startups must create an organizational culture that prioritizes learning and flexibility. This includes encouraging experimentation, rewarding risk-taking, and embracing failure as a natural part of the learning process. Ries emphasizes the importance of creating systems that enable rapid decision-making. For example, startups can use real-time data to monitor key metrics and identify emerging trends. Teams should be empowered to respond quickly to changes without waiting for approval from higher levels of management. Continuous deployment. One practical approach to improving adaptability is continuous deployment, a practice that involves releasing small changes to a product frequently and automatically. Continuous deployment enables startups to react quickly to feedback. By deploying changes in real time, startups can address customer needs and issues faster. Minimize risk. Small, incremental changes are less likely to introduce major bugs or failures than large-scale updates. Improve learning. Frequent updates provide more opportunities to test hypotheses and gather data. Ries argues that continuous deployment is particularly valuable for software startups, but can also be applied in other industries through rapid prototyping and iterative design. Overcoming resistance to change. Ries acknowledges that adapting to market changes can be challenging, especially for teams that are deeply invested in the original vision. However, he stresses that clinging to outdated strategies or assumptions can be fatal for startups. Leaders must foster a mindset of openness and adaptability throughout the organization. Chapter 11. Innovate. The final chapter of this section focuses on building a culture of innovation within startups and established organizations. Ries argues that innovation is not a one-time event but an ongoing process that requires deliberate effort and investment. The role of leadership? Leadership plays a crucial role in fostering an innovation culture. Leaders must set the tone by encouraging experimentation, supporting new ideas, and providing the resources needed for innovation. They must also be willing to challenge conventional thinking and take calculated risks. Creating innovation teams. Ries suggests that organizations create dedicated innovation teams that operate independently from the core business. These teams should be tasked with exploring new ideas, testing hypotheses, and developing experimental products. By separating innovation efforts from day-to-day operations, organizations can ensure that these efforts receive the focus and attention they deserve. Metrics for innovation. To evaluate the success of innovation efforts, organizations must adopt metrics that reflect learning and progress. Traditional financial metrics are often inadequate for measuring the value of experimental projects. Instead, organizations should use metrics like number of experiments conducted. Reflects the organization's commitment to innovation. Validated learning achieved. Measures the insights gained from experiments. Time to experiment. Indicates how quickly the organization can test and iterate on new ideas. Scaling innovation. As startups grow, they must ensure that their innovation processes scale alongside the organization. This includes creating systems and processes that enable teams to collaborate effectively, share knowledge, and replicate successful experiments. Ries also highlights the importance of protecting innovation efforts from bureaucratic inertia and short-term pressures. Organizations must strike a balance between maintaining operational efficiency and fostering creativity. The long-term impact of innovation. Ries concludes the chapter by emphasizing the long-term benefits of an innovation culture. Organizations that prioritize innovation are better equipped to navigate uncertainty, adapt to change, and stay ahead of the competition. By embedding innovation into their DNA, startups can ensure that they remain agile and resilient as they grow. Conclusion. Part 3 of the Lean Startup provides a roadmap for startups to transition from early experimentation to sustainable growth and long-term success. By adopting small batch production, leveraging sustainable growth engines, building adaptability into their processes, and fostering a culture of innovation, startups can accelerate their progress while maintaining agility. The principles outlined in this section emphasize the importance of continuous improvement, rapid learning, and a commitment to innovation. These strategies enable startups to thrive in dynamic environments, scale effectively, and achieve lasting impact. Conclusion. The Lean Startup isn't just a method, it's a mindset, a new way to approach building businesses in an era of uncertainty and rapid change. By embracing the principles of validated learning, experimentation, and continuous improvement, Eric Ries offers entrepreneurs and innovators a clear path to navigate the chaos of launching and scaling ideas. What makes this book transformative is its focus on adaptability and resilience. It challenges the traditional notions of business planning and encourages you to focus on learning what customers truly want. Through real-world examples and actionable strategies, Ries equips readers with tools to make smarter decisions, pivot when necessary, and avoid the pitfalls of wasted time and resources. But more than that, the Lean Startup inspires a cultural shift. It's a call to foster innovation, embrace failure as a stepping stone to success, and prioritize progress over perfection. Whether you're building the next groundbreaking app, scaling a small business, or leading a team within a large organization, this book offers a roadmap to sustainable growth. The journey of entrepreneurship is rarely easy, but with the Lean Startup, it becomes purposeful, data-driven, and, most importantly, impactful. Are you ready to turn your vision into a reality? If you enjoyed the summary, then like the video and subscribe to Audiobooks Vault. Tell us if there is any other book you want us to summarize. Goodbye.